We woke up that morning to the sound of shattering glass. My younger co-wife whispered, trembling, "Our husband is mad again." His voice was already booming outside, calling each of our names. Something about the way he dragged the cutlass on the floor made my stomach twist. That day, I knew the madness in our home would not end quietly. Watch the video to see what happened. I have lived in this house for 10 years. When I married Chief Abiz, I knew he had another wife already. Later, he married 2 more, and suddenly we were 4 women under one roof. Some people said we were lucky because our husband was rich, but those who lived close to us knew we were prisoners in our own compound. Chief's anger was like a storm. When it started, no one could predict where it would land. This morning was one of those days. I was in the kitchen pounding yam when I heard a loud crash from the sitting room. I froze. The sound of breaking bottles followed. My co-wife, Ngozi, rushed in and whispered, "He is mad again. He said the children are making noise." I looked at her face. She was pale, her lips trembling. We both knew what that meant. Soon he would start calling names, looking for someone to blame. The house went quiet, except for the heavy sound of his footsteps. Then he dragged something across the floor, a cutlass. I held Ngozi's hand. My heart pounded in my chest. We knew we had to hide the children before he lost control completely. That was the beginning of a day none of us would forget. He shouted my name first. "Amika, where are you? Come out here before I cut this house down." I quickly pushed Ngozi out through the back door to carry the children away. I tried to calm my breathing as I stepped into the sitting room. He stood there, shirtless, sweat dripping from his body. His eyes were bloodshot, and he gripped the cutlass in his hand. Pieces of broken glass were scattered everywhere. "Why is my food not ready?" he barked. But I was in the kitchen pounding yam. "It's almost ready." He raised the cutlass. I dropped to my knees. "Please, Chief, I beg you. The food will be ready in minutes." He stood there, chest heaving. Then he turned and smashed the television with the cutlass. The screen exploded into pieces. I screamed. Ngozi rushed back in, holding the baby. She started crying, begging him to calm down. He turned to her slowly, his lips twisting into a smile that didn't look human. That was when I realized, today would not end like the other days. Later that night, after the madness seemed to calm down, we gathered in Ngozi's room. The baby was asleep, but the other children were wide awake, their eyes big with fear. "He will kill one of us one day," Ngozi whispered. "He almost did today," I said, still shaking. The cutlass was meant for me. Our third wife, Kemi, leaned forward. She was new, married only last year, but she had already tasted Chief's madness. "I heard something," she whispered. "There is a room at the back of the compound, the one with the rusty lock. I think he hides things there." We all looked at her. "What kind of things?" I asked. "I don't know, but one night I saw him going there with a black bag. He stayed inside for a long time. When he came out, his hands were red. I thought it was palm oil, but I wasn't sure." The room went quiet. Even the children stopped moving. Ngozi shivered. "Are you saying blood?" I didn't answer, but deep inside, I knew our husband's madness was not just about anger. Something darker was hiding in that room. That night, none of us could sleep. The whole compound was too quiet, as if even the crickets were afraid to sing. I lay on my mat, staring at the ceiling, replaying the sound of the cutlass striking the television. I thought of how close it had come to my body. I kept asking myself why I stayed in this house. Was it the children? Was it fear of shame if I ran back to my parents? Or was it the money and the comfort that people outside thought we enjoyed? Ngozi tiptoed into my room around midnight. She whispered, "Amika, I can't sleep. Did you hear the sound?" He went to that back room again. I sat up quickly. "Tonight, yes. I heard the lock open. I was peeping through my window, but I didn't see clearly." I held her hands. "Ngozi, I think Kemi is right. Something is inside that room." She shivered. "But what can we do? He will kill us if we try to open it." Before I could answer, there was a sudden knock at my door. Hard, fast, and sharp. We froze. "Amika," it was Chief's voice. "Why are you still awake? Who are you whispering with? Open this door now." I almost fainted. Ngozi hid under my wrapper while I dragged myself to the door. My heart beat so loud I thought he would hear it. When I opened, he stood there shirtless again, holding a lantern. His eyes burned like fire. "Were you talking to someone?" he asked. I shook my head quickly. "No, I was just praying." He stared into my eyes for too long. Then he smiled. But it wasn't the smile of a sane man. "Good wife. Always pray. You will need it soon." And with that, he turned and walked away, the lantern swinging in his hand. I closed the door and locked it quickly. Ngozi crawled out, her face wet with sweat. "What did he mean?" she whispered. I didn't answer, but in my heart, I knew his words were not just a threat. They were a warning. The next morning, Chief acted as if nothing had happened. He wore his fine agbada, ate the food I served him without complaint, and even gave the children money. If not for the smashed television in the sitting room, you would never believe he had almost killed us the night before. That was how it always was with him. Madness one moment, kindness the next. But my mind was stuck on the back room. Around noon, when Chief went to the town meeting, I gathered Ngozi and Kemi in the kitchen. "Today, we will check that room," I said firmly. Ngozi almost dropped the spoon in her hand. "Are you mad? If he finds out, then we are finished anyway." I cut her off. "Don't you see? His madness is getting worse. One day he won't just break a television. He will break us. If we don't find out what he hides in there, we may never leave this house alive." Kemi nodded slowly. "I agree. I think that is where his madness comes from." By late afternoon, we pretended to be busy with chores. When we were sure he had gone far, we sneaked to the back of the compound. The rusty lock was there, hanging loosely. My hands shook as I touched it. Surprisingly, it wasn't even locked properly. It opened after one pull. The door creaked as we pushed it. A foul smell rushed out, heavy and rotten. Ngozi covered her nose, gagging. Inside, the room was dark, except for a small window covered with cobwebs. We stepped in carefully. On the floor, we saw calabashes filled with dark liquid. Some had feathers, others had bones. Strange symbols were drawn on the wall in white chalk, and at the center lay a black pot with red stains around it. Kemi gasped and held my arm tight. "Blood. It's blood." I swallowed hard, my stomach twisting. Then my eyes caught something worse. A bundle wrapped in a cloth at the corner. The cloth was stained deep brown. I bent down and slowly opened it. Inside was a dead chicken. But not just that. Beneath the feathers, there were small bones that looked too human to belong to an animal. Ngozi screamed. I covered her mouth quickly, but it was too late. Footsteps echoed behind us. We turned. Chief was standing at the door. His face was calm. Too calm. "So," he said slowly, "my wives want to know what makes me mad." The cutlass was in his hand again. He stepped into the room and shut the door behind him. My knees weakened. Ngozi clutched me tightly, shaking uncontrollably. Kemi's lips moved in silent prayer. Chief looked around the room like a proud man showing off his wealth. He pointed at the black pot. "This," he said, "is where my strength comes from. This is why no man in this village can stand against me. Why I am feared. Why you eat good food and wear fine clothes." His voice grew louder. "Do you think riches come from the sky? Do you think respect comes for free? No. Everything you enjoy here comes from blood. From sacrifice." He lifted the cutlass, pointing it at us. "And if any of you dare to betray me, if any of you dare to run away or speak of what you have seen here, this same cutlass will drink your blood." He smiled again, but this time it was darker than death itself. We stood frozen, our hearts pounding. He leaned closer, his breath hot on my face. "You opened the door today, but one day, one of you will be the sacrifice." After that day in the ritual room, none of us were ever the same again. Chief carried himself around the compound like a king who had just won a war. He barked orders, threw money on the table, and sometimes laughed out loud for no reason. But whenever his eyes met mine, I saw something, a silent reminder of the words he had spoken. "One of you will be the sacrifice." I tried to act normal, cooking and caring for the children, but inside me I was a shaking leaf. Ngozi hardly came out of her room anymore. Her face grew pale, her eyes hollow. Kemi, on the other hand, became restless. She would sit and mutter, "We must escape. We must escape." But escaping was not so simple. Chief had influence everywhere. He had boys who worked for him in the village, always hanging around our compound. If one of us tried to run, they would drag her back, and God knows what would happen then. One night, I lay awake listening to his heavy snore from the master bedroom. Suddenly, I heard the sound of the ritual room door opening again. I peeked through my window and saw the lantern glow moving toward the back. He stayed there for hours. At intervals, I heard strange chants, then something that sounded like crying. I wanted to believe it was an animal, but deep down, I feared it wasn't. When morning came, I saw feathers and fresh blood on the compound floor. Chief was dressed in white, smiling, his eyes shining unnaturally bright. Breakfast, he roared happily. Today, my wives will eat well. He clapped his hands and his boys dragged in 2 fat goats. He slaughtered them with 1 strike each. Blood splashed, and he laughed. Ngozi fainted right there in the courtyard. It was 3 days later that the worst happened. Ngozi's little daughter, Chidinma, went missing. We searched everywhere, in the rooms, in the compound, even in the nearby bush. She was nowhere to be found. Ngozi was screaming, tearing her clothes, running barefoot through the village. My child, my Chidinma. Villagers gathered, whispering among themselves. Some looked at Chief with suspicion, but none of them dared to speak against him. Chief stood calmly in the center of the chaos. His eyes were cold. When Ngozi fell at his feet begging, he simply said, "Children wander. Maybe she followed someone. Maybe she will come back." But I knew where to look. That evening, when the compound was quiet again, I sneaked toward the ritual room. The lock was tight, but the smell of fresh blood was strong. I pressed my ear against the door. I thought I heard a faint whimper, or maybe it was just my imagination. My whole body shook. Suddenly, a hand grabbed me from behind. I almost screamed. It was Kemi. Her eyes were wild. She whispered fast, "He took her. Amaka, he took that child. We must leave before we are next." But how? Chief's boys were always at the gate, and Ngozi was half mad with grief, unable to even stand straight. That night, Chief sat in the sitting room, chewing cola and laughing at nothing. When I served him water, he grabbed my wrist. "Amaka," he said softly, "you are my first wife. You are loyal. You know everything I do is for this family. Don't ever betray me." His grip tightened until my bones screamed. Then he released me with a smile. Behind his smile, I saw the truth. Chidinma was gone, and she was never coming back. The next morning, I found Ngozi sitting on the floor, rocking back and forth. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her lips cracked. She kept muttering her daughter's name like a broken record. I sat beside her, holding her cold hands. I wanted to tell her the truth, but how could I? How could a mother survive knowing her child had been used in such darkness? Kemi joined us, her face tight with fear. She whispered, "If we don't leave soon, one of us will end up like Chidinma. We can't wait anymore." Ngozi lifted her head weakly. "Where will we go? He will find us. He always finds people." Kemi leaned closer. "There is one man in the next town, Pastor Elijah. They say he helps women escape bad marriages. If we can reach his church, he will protect us." I hesitated. Chief's reach was long, but Pastor Elijah was known for his boldness. He wasn't afraid of anyone. Maybe he was our only hope. "But how do we get past his boys?" I asked. Kemi smiled faintly. "Market day is in 2 days. He always lets the boys escort him to the village square, leaving the compound less guarded. That is our chance." I felt a flicker of hope, but fear quickly drowned it. If Chief caught us trying to run, it would not just be blood, it would be death. That night, as I lay on my mat, I kept hearing Chief's words echo in my head. "One day, one of you will be the sacrifice." And I knew, the day was coming fast. The 2 days leading to the market felt like years. Every second in that house was torture. Chief was in a strangely good mood. He sang while shaving, whistled when eating, even called us my beautiful queens. But this false peace was worse than his anger. It felt like the calm before a deadly storm. Ngozi still hadn't stopped crying. She walked around like a ghost, holding Chidinma's slippers in her hand. Sometimes she would whisper, "She will come back. She will walk in with a smile." We didn't dare tell her otherwise. "Kemi, on the other hand, was restless. She was already hiding clothes and money under her wrapper, preparing for the escape. Every time Chief left the compound, she whispered plans to me, which road to take, which bush path to follow, how we would reach Pastor Elijah's church. But I couldn't sleep. Each night I kept hearing footsteps near my window. Once, I thought I saw Chief standing in the shadows, just watching me. By the time I blinked, he was gone. The night before market day, I lay awake. Ngozi finally slept, clutching her child's slippers. Kemi crawled to my mat and whispered, "Tomorrow, we must not fail. Once he leaves for the market, we run. Even if we die on the way, it's better than here." I nodded slowly, but inside, my fear was bigger than my courage. Chief was unpredictable. If he even suspected our plan, we were finished. When morning came, the whole compound buzzed with activity. It was market day. Chief dressed in his finest agbada, his boys lined up behind him. He clapped his hands and announced, "Today we feast. Go and buy meat, fish, and wine. Tonight, my house will be filled with joy." His boys followed him out. The gate slammed shut. This was our chance. As soon as Chief left, Kemi grabbed my hand. Now, we rushed to gather the children. Ngozi was confused at first, asking, "Where are we going? What if Chidanma comes back?" Tears ran down her face. "We will find her there," I lied softly. "Let's go." We wrapped food in cloths, strapped the smaller children on our backs, and crept toward the back fence. Kemi had found a loose spot where the mud wall was weak. With enough force, we could squeeze through. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst. The sound of each child's breath felt like thunder in my ears. Ngozi almost dropped her son while climbing, but Kemi dragged her through. One by one, we pushed the children out. Finally, I crawled through the hole, my wrapper tearing on the rough wall. We were outside. Free air touched my face for the first time in years. I wanted to cry. We ran into the bush path, our feet bare, our lungs burning. The children stumbled but we pulled them along. The sound of the market drums carried faintly from afar, giving us hope. But just as the road cleared, I heard it. The sound of an engine. A black jeep blocked the narrow path ahead. Chief's jeep. He stepped out slowly, wearing his agbada. His boys climbed down behind him, grinning. My whole body turned to ice. "How far can goats run before the butcher finds them?" he asked calmly. Ngozi screamed and fell to the ground. The children began to wail. Kemi tried to pull me back, but the boys grabbed us roughly. Chief just smiled. "You think you can run from me? You think you can expose me? No one leaves my house unless they are carried out, dead." He lifted his cutlass and pointed it at us. That was when I knew. This wasn't an ordinary marriage. This was a prison. And our jailer was a devil. We were dragged back to the compound like criminals. Villagers saw us crying and struggling, but no one moved. No one dared to intervene. Chief's power stretched like a curse over every soul in that place. Back inside, he ordered the children locked in one room. Then he made us kneel in the courtyard. His eyes glowed with rage, but his voice was cold. "You dare to shame me in this village? You dare to run?" He paced slowly, dragging the cutlass along the ground. Sparks flew each time the blade kissed the stones. Ngozi begged, "Please, Chief, forgive us. We were only..." Before she could finish, he struck her with the flat side of the cutlass. She fell with a cry. Blood trickled down her arm. Kemi screamed, but one of the boys held her down. Chief turned to me. His eyes bored into mine. "And you, my first wife, the one who should know better, you led them, didn't you?" Tears poured down my face. "No, Chief, I swear." He raised the cutlass high. For a moment, I thought my head would roll, but instead, he brought it down on the ground, missing me by an inch. The blade stuck in the earth. He leaned close, whispering, "If not for the children, you would be in that pot already." He straightened and barked, "Lock them inside. No food, no water, until I decide their fate." We were dragged into one of the small rooms. The lock clicked shut. Darkness surrounded us. The children's cries echoed from the other room. Ngozi lay on the floor bleeding. Kemi sat in a corner, eyes wild with fury, and I sat frozen, my mind screaming the same words over and over. "Our husband is mad again." The room Chief locked us in was small. damp, and smelled of rat urine. The walls were cracked, and the single window was nailed shut. We could hear the children crying faintly from the other locked room, but we couldn't reach them. Ngozi lay on the floor, clutching her bleeding arm. I tore part of my wrapper to wrap it, but the wound still oozed. She muttered Chidinma's name over and over, her voice weak. Kemi paced like a trapped lioness. "We can't die here," she whispered furiously. "If we don't act now, he will sacrifice one of us next." My whole body trembled, but I tried to stay calm. "What do you want us to do? The door is locked. His boys are outside." Kemi stopped pacing and bent close. Her voice dropped. "I know something. Something about Chief." I looked at her sharply. "What do you mean?" She swallowed hard, glancing at Ngozi to be sure she was half asleep. Then she whispered, "Chief's madness is not just ordinary. He wasn't always like this. My uncle told me a story before I married him. They say he went to a shrine deep in the forest to get wealth, but the charm demanded blood every year. First animals, then children. That's why he married many wives, so there would always be children to give." My skin went cold. Kemi continued, her eyes burning. "The shrine is what makes him untouchable in this village. But there is one weakness. If the pot in that ritual room is destroyed, his power will scatter. My uncle said it holds his covenant." I stared at her in shock. It sounded mad, but after what we had seen, I believed it. Just then, footsteps came near the door. A tray of food and water slid inside. One of his boys barked, "Eat. He says you'll need strength for tomorrow." Then silence again. I looked at Kemi. "Tomorrow?" She nodded grimly. "Yes. He is planning something, and if we don't act tonight, one of us may not see the morning." That night, we sat in darkness, too scared to sleep. Ngozi shivered in her fever, mumbling nonsense. Kemi and I whispered plans, but everything seemed impossible. Suddenly, we heard a soft knock at the door. We froze. The knock came again. Then a voice whispered, "Mama Amika, open small." "It's me." My heart skipped. I knew that voice. It was Obina, the youngest of Chief's errand boys, barely 16, thin like a stick. We hurried to the door. "What are you doing here?" I whispered through the crack. "I came to help," he whispered back, glancing nervously around. "I saw what Oga did to you. He is not a man. He is a devil. I don't want to serve him any more." Tears filled my eyes. "Obina, please, help us and the children. He will kill us if we stay." He hesitated, then slipped a small key through the gap. "This can open the back door, but you must hurry. He is in the ritual room now, preparing." I heard him chanting. Kemi grabbed the key, her eyes wide with fire. "We can end this tonight." Obina leaned closer. "If you try, make sure you break the black pot. That is where his power lies. But be careful. If he catches you." He didn't finish the sentence. His footsteps faded into the night. I looked at Kemi. She held the key tight in her hand. "This is our only chance," she whispered. I glanced at Ngozi, weak and barely conscious. "How do we carry her?" Kemi's jaw tightened. "We will manage, but we can't wait till morning. Tonight, we fight." The key turned smoothly in the lock. The door creaked open. The compound was dark, the only light coming from the faint glow at the back where the ritual room stood. Kemi and I half carried Ngozi, who staggered weakly, moaning. We crept silently past the sleeping boys. My heart was hammering so loud I was sure it would wake them. At the ritual room door, we heard Chief's voice inside, low chants, strange and deep. The smell of burning herbs and blood filled the air. Kemi's hand shook as she turned the handle. To our shock, the door wasn't locked. We pushed it slowly. Inside, Chief knelt before the black pot, naked from the waist up, his body smeared with chalk. Candles burned around him. The pot bubbled though no fire touched it. We froze. Suddenly, he turned his head slightly, as if sensing us. "Who dares?" Before I could think, Kemi screamed and rushed forward. She grabbed a heavy stone from the floor and smashed it down on the pot. The sound was like thunder. The pot cracked, spilling thick black liquid across the floor. Chief roared, clutching his chest. His body convulsed, his eyes bulging. He staggered like a man struck by lightning. Ngozi fell to her knees, screaming. I pulled her back, terrified. Chief's voice boomed, not like a human voice, You fools! Do you know what you've done? The candles blew out at once. The room plunged into darkness. And then, a sound rose from the pot. Not human, not animal. A wail so deep it froze my blood. We had broken the pot, but we had also released something far worse. The sound that rose from the shattered pot didn't belong to this world. It was a cry that shook the walls. A voice of pain and rage rolled into one. My knees buckled, and Ngozi collapsed fully, screaming. Chief staggered, holding his chest. His veins bulged like ropes, his mouth foaming. No, you cannot break the covenant, he shouted, his voice half human, half something else. The black liquid from the pot spread across the floor, moving like it was alive. It crawled toward us, hissing. Kemi pulled me back. Run, she shouted. But Chief leapt to his feet with a strength that didn't look natural. His eyes glowed red in the candlelight. He grabbed his cutlass and swung wildly, nearly slicing Kemi's head. You dare betray me in my own shrine, he roared. Then all of you will feed the spirit tonight. I dragged Ngozi toward the door, my breath ragged, my legs trembling. Kemi picked up the broken stone again and flung it at Chief's head. It hit him hard, but instead of falling, he laughed, a loud, hollow laugh that made my skin crawl. The black liquid rose higher, forming shapes, arms, faces, crying mouths. My blood froze. It wasn't just blood, it was the souls of all his sacrifices, and they were angry. Chief swung his cutlass at the shapes, shouting incantations, but instead of obeying him, the shadows clawed at his body, pulling at his skin. For the first time in years, I saw fear in his eyes. We ran out of the ritual room, dragging Ngozi. The night air slapped our faces, but behind us, Chief's screams grew louder, mixed with the wails of the spirits. Something had been unleashed, and it wasn't going back. We stumbled into the compound, gasping for air. The children were still locked in the small room, their cries piercing the night. I ran to free them, fumbling with the key Obina had given me earlier. The door opened, and they rushed into my arms, terrified but alive. Ngozi hugged her son weakly, tears pouring down her face. For the first time, she didn't mention Chidinma's name. It was as if she already knew her daughter's soul was among the shadows in that pot. From the ritual room, Chief staggered out. His body was covered in scratches, his face swollen, his eyes were wild, his voice broken. You will all pay, he screamed. No one escapes me. But something followed him out. Shadows, whispering, crawling across the walls like smoke. The ground trembled. The boys who had been sleeping outside woke up, saw the sight, and ran screaming into the village. Their shouts echoed. Chief's shrine has turned against him. The spirits are loose. Doors opened. Villagers poured into the night, holding lamps. Whispers turned to panic as they saw Chief fighting with shadows no one could understand. For years, they had feared him, bowed to him, obeyed him. But now, for the first time, he looked weak. He looked like prey. Pastor Elijah himself appeared at the gate, drawn by the commotion. His white robe glowed under the moonlight. He raised his Bible high and shouted, "The evil in this house has been exposed. Tonight, the truth will be seen." Chief roared and lunged at him with the cutlass. But before he could strike, a shadow pulled his arm, twisting it unnaturally. The cutlass fell, clattering to the ground. The villagers gasped. The devil they had feared for years was being dragged down by his own sacrifices. And we stood there, watching, knowing the end was near. The courtyard became chaos. Shadows swirled. Villagers shouted prayers. Pastor Elijah commanded in a booming voice, "Let the souls be free. Let the blood cry out no more." Chief thrashed like a mad animal, scratching his own face, tearing at his skin. His laughter had turned into screams. "No, I gave you blood. I gave you everything. You can't take me." But the shadows didn't listen. They wrapped around his body, pulling him to the ground. His legs kicked wildly. His eyes bulged. Ngozi crawled closer, her weak voice trembling. "Chidinma, is she there?" At that moment, one shadow broke free, the faint shape of a small girl with tiny hands. It looked at Ngozi briefly before fading into the night sky. Ngozi wailed and collapsed, but I held her tight. "She is free now," I whispered. Chief clawed at the earth, screaming curses. "Amaka, Ngozi, Kemi, you will die with me. You will." Before he could finish, The shadows covered his mouth. His scream cut off. His body convulsed one last time, then fell still. Silence fell over the courtyard. The shadows slowly melted into the ground, disappearing as if they had never been there. The villagers stood frozen. Pastor Elijah stepped forward, breathing heavily. "It is done," he declared. "The curse is broken. Chief Abies, the man who had tormented us, who had ruled with madness and blood, lay lifeless in the dirt. His cutlass glistened in the moonlight beside him, and for the first time in years, the air in our compound felt light. But as I held my children close, a thought stabbed me. Chief might be gone, but could madness this deep really die in one night? By the time we entered the 19th chapter of this nightmare, Chief was no longer the same man who married us. He barely ate with us, barely slept, and when he did, he muttered names none of us knew. The children had stopped playing freely. Even the youngest ones, who didn't understand fear, now walked around on tiptoes. That evening, everything exploded. Chief came home earlier than usual. His shirt was torn, his face scratched, and his eyes bloodshot. He barged into the compound carrying the very cutlass that had haunted our dreams. "Where are they?" he shouted, his voice breaking like thunder. "You think you can plot against me? You think I don't know?" We froze where we were seated. Ngozi tried to stand, but her knees gave way. Amina rushed to the children, pushing them into the room. Kemi and I stayed rooted, our bodies trembling. He turned to me first. "Amika, tell me, have you been opening that door when I'm not here?" I swallowed hard, my lips too dry to answer. Then he threw the cutlass on the ground. The blade clattered and rang against the cement, its echo crawling into our bones. "I hear voices inside this compound when I'm gone. You think I don't know?" We stared at him in shock. Which voices was he talking about? Then, suddenly, he staggered back, clutching his head. He fell to his knees and began banging his forehead on the floor, screaming as if something inside him was burning. It was Amina who whispered the words we all feared. "He's possessed." The air grew heavy. Even the night insects went silent. We could only watch, frozen, as our husband clawed at his own chest, muttering in a language none of us had ever heard before. The madness had reached its peak, and deep inside me, I knew that by dawn, something terrible would happen in this house. That night, none of us slept. Chief's screams had shaken the entire compound. After a while, he collapsed on the floor, breathing heavily like a wounded animal. Then, without saying a word, he picked up his cutlass and staggered toward the back room, the one place we had never been allowed to enter. We exchanged terrified looks. Ngozi whispered, "If we don't follow him, we may never know what has been controlling him." Amina shook her head. "If we follow him, we may not come out alive." But something stronger than fear pulled us together. One by one, we followed Chief, quietly, our bare feet pressing into the cold cement. The back room door creaked open. A smell hit us first, rotten, damp, and metallic. Chief entered and lit a lantern. The dim glow revealed what none of us expected. The walls were covered in strange drawings, symbols carved deep into the cement, stained with what looked like blood. At the center of the room was a wooden box, half broken, with curries, feathers, and bones sticking out. Beside it lay a black clay pot, sealed with red cloth and palm oil dripping down its sides. Chief dropped the cutlass and began to cry. Actual tears. His voice cracked as he muttered, "I never wanted this. I just wanted power. They told me I must keep feeding it." We stood frozen, our breath shallow. "Feeding it?" Kemi finally gathered courage. "Chief, what is this?" He turned slowly, his eyes wild, but his voice surprisingly calm. "When I married the second wife, they told me 4 wives were needed. Each wife strengthens the bond. The more wives, the more wealth. But they didn't tell me the cost." Ngozi gasped. "Cost? What cost?" He laughed bitterly. "1 child. Every 3 years. That is why our children fall sick. Why strange things happen. It's not madness. It's the debt." My stomach dropped. All those unexplained deaths, the miscarriages, the sicknesses. It suddenly made sense. Before we could react, Chief lifted the clay pot and smashed it against the floor. A dark smoke burst out, filling the room, curling around us like living shadows. The lantern flickered. The walls seemed to shake. "Leave," Chief shouted at us. Leave now before it takes you to. But we couldn't move. Our legs felt heavy, rooted to the ground. The smoke circled him, rising like a tornado. He screamed again, this time in that strange language, and fell to his knees. The shadows entered him. His body convulsed. His eyes rolled back. And then, silence. The lantern went out. We fumbled, panicked, until Amina struck a match. When the small flame lit, Chief's body was on the floor, lifeless. His eyes were open, staring blankly, and his mouth twisted in a frozen scream. The symbols on the walls had faded. The clay pot was gone, as if it never existed. We dragged his body out, our hands trembling, our hearts beating like drums. The night was too quiet, the air too cold. Even the moon hid behind clouds. By morning, the compound was filled with people. Neighbors came running when they heard we had lost our husband. They found us sitting outside, silent, shaken, unable to explain what had happened. The elders ruled it was madness. Chief finally lost his mind, they said. The gods have taken him. No one believed our story about the back room, the smoke, the symbols. The room itself was empty when they checked. No carvings, no box, no clay pot, nothing. But we knew the truth. And even now, years later, when the children cry at night or when shadows move strangely in corners, I remember Chief's words. They told me I must keep feeding it. Our husband is gone. But sometimes, in the silence of the night, I swear I still hear him muttering in that strange language, just beyond the walls of the back room. The moral lesson to learn from this interesting story is that secrets never stay hidden. Greed and lust for power always destroy in the end. A family without trust and unity will easily fall apart, and silence in the face of evil only makes it stronger. I will love to hear from you. What lesson did you learn from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments section. I enjoy reading all of them. Another exciting story is coming up here in a few days, so don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notifications bell to be the first person to be notified when it's out. Hit the like button and share with your friends. Thanks for watching till the end. See you in the next story.